Hi, my name is Keith and I'm known as the Florida Stone Man, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the fall of ego and how to avoid it. I'm also going to be sharing some of my more personal stories as well in this video, so stay tuned. And people will remind me in person sometimes, like, your orbs, they're not in the straight order or whatever, they are where they need to be. So, my orbs. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to avoid ego and what's behind it. I talked about ego a couple weeks ago. Now I'll be telling you guys how to avoid it. Wouldn't it be nice to know how to avoid it? Well, there's lots of entities who can only use your ego to get in. Ego's highly contagious, and entities will boost it to lower your vibration. I've seen that before. It's been a part of something way a long time ago. I was around certain set of spirits that would just do nothing but feed ego, and I can't share because that was when I was way younger. This is how I know what they do, because they'll literally trap anyone. They'll literally do it through your divination methods. They'll do it through anything you're doing. So this is actually the first set of entities to be able to get through to talk to you. Ego is everything in the spiritual realm and how to get a person to be able to fall. What do I mean by that? I mean, that's the only way they can get in. For a person who's generally intelligent, a person who's smart, a person who's extremely gifted, sometimes that person's spiritual protections and guards are up. That's the only way to make their guard fall. That's the only way to open the gateway of karma. So, I'm going to use the aspect of the spiritual realm before I talk about the physical world, because the physical and the spiritual literally translate into one and they both go in the same bubble. So, when it comes to spirits and ego, the trickster ones are always going to tell you something, but not too much, but something. I mean, some of the tricksters are just flat out dumb. They're not as smart as they think they are. So they'll tell you, oh, you know you're a god, right? And some people will be like, yeah, I am. And they'll go on TikTok, Instagram, etc. and post, oh, we are the gods now. Okay, that's what Adam and Eve basically fell into, the trap of the little serpent in the Garden of Eden, basically saying you can be your own gods, right? You can be like, there's no consequences. You won't suffer death if you take a bite of this apple. Like you told not to take a bite into the apple, but take a bite into the apple, and they did, and they fell for it. And the translations of that through many different books, including the original ones, are extremely interesting, because people will actually, and it's disturbing. Some people will read that and be like, well, I think it's telling us that we are our own gods. Well, that's not the case, because the devil wouldn't be constantly having to go around people of God, okay? The devil has to answer to God in the end of the day, and even the devil was defeated. In the background of St. Michael the Archangel, he was defeated. Flat out defeated. So, that's basically, that's where that direction's heading. But for how you guys can avoid ego, some of the methods I'm going to teach in this video, they're a little unorthodox, but it'll help you. I do have to talk about how contagious ego is. Even if you're someone, and this is going to be the easiest method ever, is just flat out stay away from people with ego. Flat out stay away. Stay far away from people with ego. And that might actually mean changing some of your lifestyles and habits, because I'm going to give you an example. If you're someone who goes to bars and clubs and places like that, and you're looking to not being ego or egotistical, well, you're going to encounter a lot of that there, and it's highly contagious, because humans have mirror behavior, and you'll kind of want to mirror the behavior that was done to you to make yourself feel better, or to make yourself just flat out. You'll think you're going to try to break the cycle, or you think you're not going to be egotistical when little tiny characteristics pass on. So if you're put in a room with someone, energetically, you're already picking up on the energy. If you're around a bunch of egotistical people, then you're going to pick up on that energy as well. The one way you can avoid egotistical or becoming egotistical, and what does being egotistical do? It devours your karma. It flat out devours. It opens you to a world of awakening. So in a sense, it's good, because it helps people get on the right track. And then it's very, very bad because if someone really does need it, then they'll get exactly what they're needing. So what do I do when I see people who have a lot of ego? Point them straight to God, and I'll pray for them. So how do I do that? Well, the person normally gets humbled, and when they hit the lowest, they realize that they're not everything. I'll tell you right now, what is everything is God, the Most High. And that is the only way you'll be able to shake off entities of ego. That's the main and only way. There are other ways, but it's through God, because He is above all. The enemy will do everything to pump your ego. If you go to spiritual readers, most spiritual readers will, like a tire, pump the ego. Pump, pump, pump. And then, and I don't want to make it sound like they get full of themselves after just going to certain readers, but some readers will be like, you're the most powerful person in the world. You're your own God. Like, you should, like, and then people will, and if you're not aware of this side of the spirituality being open, there's an entire part of the internet that's literally just that. It's like, we're our own gods. And the people don't even realize they're being hit by the karma the hardest. And it's flat out contagious. So when someone is egotistical to you, because like I found out that most people live in major cities or around people, even if they're not in major cities, that is just full of ego. How do you avoid that? You mainly talk to God when that's demonstrated upon you. So when someone presents ego upon you, it's enough to be able to get into your subconscious mind to make you practice mirror behaviors. That's why when someone is normally humble, they'll move to a bigger city where people are full of ego, and they'll actually end up having ego-causing behavior, which happens most of the time. Now, the person will either learn and you better hope that your lessons are sooner than later, because if you have to learn everything over a slow course of time, by the time you get to a certain age, ego and age don't. There's people who are older, and as the older you get, because some people are like, well, ego goes away as you get older. No, it doesn't. That's the same thing as people thinking you get smarter as you get older. Not true. Not true. Not true. That's all I'll say about that one. But mainly talk to God, and this is the main thing. He can flat out dispel it on the spot. If someone, and I see this all the time, whenever I go through the city, I'm like, oh my God, what are these people doing? Like someone with I'm not gonna name any high-end car because I know my monetization rules, but for example, a double nacho cheese XL is driving, and it's like, and this I actually seen this not with that model named double nacho cheese XL. So this basically, it was yellow, okay, and the guy was driving a very high-end car. It was a brand new car, like limited nacho LX cheese. With queso. But this person wasn't letting people go through the bike lane, was driving on like the sidewalk so people couldn't, and the sidewalk's like this big where I was driving, and the person was just like, it was sad. It was just like, go around. You see my car, go around. And that's just an example of ego. But the same people who I've seen that happen to, if no one's praying for that person, if that person's not moving closer to God, then that person will live a life like that for 20 years, and it'll just be, the little tiny karmas will be here and there, but they'll never advance. They'll just be in a stasis going downwards. Versus, if God really does care about you, but if you're really devoted to moving towards God, it'll be sped up very quickly, and you'll have your ego karma at once, so that happens to just dispel the ego. I'm going to tell a story from a very long time ago. I leave certain stories in the past, but when I was opening up my senses to the spiritual world, in the spiritual world, this is one reason I don't work with spirits, is because they'll inflate your ego. When I was under the age of 18, a certain entity or whatever started pumping my ego up, because I could hear the entity, and it was a spirit. It wasn't a demon. It wasn't an angel. And it's like, it's telling me all this stuff. It's like, oh, like inflating my ego. And I actually noticed this is how everyone starts off. They'll find some kind of being that goes into their divination, goes into whatever, and they'll basically inflate the divination and be like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to say what it said specifically because it wasn't worth saying, but the way that my ego got dropped back then, at a young age, is when I thought I was all that, because we all have that phase in high school, someone walked up to me and threw up on me, and it was instantly dispelled. So something was over me was something like a spell due to that being around me. Now the entity, that's probably hilarious. That woke me up. I felt like I literally woke up. I felt like I hopped out of my body. I'm like, wait. I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what am I doing? Because I used to wear red. All red. If you guys could have an idea. And I was just like, what? What? And I woke up. I just woke up out of because ego is asleep. I'll make more videos on this in the future because there's so much to say in so little time because not these videos are not. I'm not gonna let them go on for more than half an hour, but this could be less than 15 minutes. The point is, the entity can put a spell over a person to make them feel higher than they are. So that's why sometimes you see people walking in the street and they're like this, the chin's up, and they're not moving out of the way for people. They're being really rude to people, and they're being condescending, and those people who are having a good day either brush it off, they take it personal, they think they have to demonstrate the same behavior, and it spreads. Whatever kind of negativity from that person spreads. Now, I have seen it where people in my city, I cannot say who, the people who use their ego to put other people down, with the most high end of cars, had all their cars flood last year in the Fort Lauderdale flooding, which I can't say anything about that. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. But people will get woken up, and when they're woken up, they'll immediately look around, they'll have an opportunity to go back to sleep, or they'll move closer to God. If you see people demonstrating ego on you, you're not alone. You're not alone. This is the most important method. So if anyone practices ego on you guys in the future, or anyone who's watching this video, because you're going to see this and you're not going to know what to do. Because it's easier to say, okay, don't be egotistical or don't go evolve yourself in your ego. What you do, here's what you do. Talk to God on the spot. For people who see me in the gym, they might see me talking to myself. I'm literally talking to God. If I see someone so full of ego to the point where they're putting other people down, I will out loud pray for the person that person's putting down, and I'll pray for that person. I'll pray for them to move closer to God and to snap out of their ways so they wake up and have a life full of light and enjoyment. Because if you're someone full of ego and you get to the afterlife, you're literally in the lowest state available. And let me tell you, if you wonder where evil spirits come from, it's beings who were on earth, who thought everything of themselves, had no connection to God, and flat out, when they lose the body, when they lose what they have, when they lose everything in the physical world, they get into the spiritual world, and they were worse than they were when they came into the body. They've downgraded, and now that goes their chance. They don't get other chances like that. That was their proving point. That was their definition as a soul of what they did on Earth. You think their guides are going to let them come back? You think... I can't speak about what happens in between, but those people become extremely angry. Highly angry. Very, very irritable. But the point is, to avoid the fall of ego, you'll have to move yourself closer to God. You'll have to realize that everything we have can be given in 1 second or taken in 1 second. The thing about one is it takes 1 second for someone to lose an arm, a limb, accident, or it takes 1 second for a person to be born, win a ticket that just changes their life, scratch off, whatever, lottery, etc. A person can become a millionaire 1 second after having zero, or a person who's a millionaire can lose everything in 1 second because that person was not a good person and God took it away. It happens all the time. The point is, when God gives you a blessing, and that's why you wonder why certain people of darkness have what they have. It's because the enemy gives it to them so the enemy can pilot through them. So the enemy can harvest more people on his side so that people don't see the bigger picture. In essence, long story short, basically it's a false light versus the real light. You move closer to God, the ego gets dispelled. You see more light, so every time the ego's around you, it's dispelled. You're seeing actual light versus a fake light that doesn't do much. And it's not as pleasing. It's not as fulfilling for the soul. So In essence, the easiest way to move away from ego is to move closer to God. When you ask God to remove ego, to know that what's behind it is entities, it's mainly spirits, but when the ego becomes progressively dark, it becomes lower level demons. Actually, it becomes more than lower level demons, but those just, I'm not going to speak about those. Those flat out offer you ego. Basically, they'll pump you up. They'll think you're just way more powerful than you are. That you can do whatever you want. They'll offer that fame, fortune, etc. There's I can't really. It's my censorship face. I'm like censoring myself because I can't say specific names or specific people. So I'll be talking vaguely in between the lines because I can't say. Yeah, I'm not going to say any specific people, but I know people who have sold themselves because of certain promises. People who were somewhat close to me. People who flat out openly sold themselves, etc. And in the end, they have nothing to show for it. What they have is not theirs. They're just kind of property at that point. But the whole video about this video is how to move away from ego, to become more aware of it, that it's mainly entities behind the ego. It's the entities fueling your soul to become an entity like them. It's a tough concept to explain, but you don't have to know the details, or don't have to understand the details. The main thing is moving closer to God. If you need help on the spot, you have to be able to identify as well. The ego is not being identified these days. How can you flat out banish a demon for eternity? You get its name. If you know its name, then you can banish it. Because dark forces can always be put in dark places. Back to where they belong. They can't try to come into fake light or false light because they can be banished. So if you know what is going on around you, and your guides will make it obvious. If your angels care, most importantly God cares, and he'll send his angels. If you've asked for help, they say, okay, please don't let me be egotistical. Please let me. And what happens when you're, that's the next video topic. What happens when you lose all ego? You're okay. You'll go throughout the world light and feeling just fluffy and just euphoric. You'll just be happy. It doesn't matter if someone just makes a dirty face at you or etc. Because if you're living in a major city or living around people with ego, they'll do everything like a dirty look, like oh, you looked at me. How dare you look at me with demise in your head? You think those eyes, like, they belong in that skull? Like, look at, I don't know what people say, but you think you could just look at me? You know what? You know who I am. You know what I have. Like, most importantly, you don't need anything else when it comes to ego except for God's love. That is enough to fill your soul. That's enough to set you free from whatever they're worried about. But like I said, my technique is talk to God on the spot. Don't wait till Sunday. Don't wait till you get home. If someone's trying to impose their ego on you, ask God to dissolve their ego to save them and to protect you from the ego going towards you. This is the most effective ever. The most effective thing you could do ever is take ego and give it to God. It could be someone else's ego. It could be your ego. He's the only one who can transmute things like that because we don't fully understand it, and it's a tough concept to explain. So many invisible things happen that we can't see, but God has, that's all you have to do. It works like magic. He'll literally send the light from heaven, and it will destroy the energies of ego and the attachments of ego and the pride, and just because those ego, pride, those don't get into the kingdom of God. I'll make more videos about why there's so many angry spirits. You're like, why are these entities so angry? Why are these spirits so angry? It's because they had ego in life, and it didn't get them anywhere in the afterlife. If you would like to imagine what the afterlife is of someone full of ego, take your right hand and take your left hand, cover your eyes, cover your ears. That's where those people end up. It's like, oh my God, it's dark here. There's nothing around. And go like this. When you put your hands over your eyes, kind of give yourself a little crack like this. Like a little crack of light. So they can see. They can see you. And that's a really good topic for another video, but continue to crack the light open. until it's like this. Now you can see a little bit. So for people who flat out just engage in ego, the entities of ego can see them more, and they can attach themselves more, and they can have more of a part. But to protect yourself from entities like that, you can wear black tourmaline from FloridaStoneman.com, but the most important thing is not engaging in it, recognizing it, and giving it to God. So get in the habit of recognizing ego. Just flat out recognize it when you see it, recognize it when you feel it. Focus on your chest and on your stomach the next time someone imposes ego, because that's the two chakras that the ego attacks. Not necessarily the crown, because it trickles up to the crown. It trickles down to the root. But those, you'll feel your chest get like, it feels like you missed a heartbeat, and you'll feel like a twist in your stomach. That's your solar plexus and heart chakra telling you that ego is trying to become attached. Because entities are behind that, and that's the only way they can trap your guards, so they can get in, so they can get energy, so they can do more, so they can take you with them when you go in the afterlife and that you're away from God. Remember, God's above these entities. He allowed them to be here. And when Judgment Day comes, for the people free of ego and the people free of pride, oh, you're just going to have a very good time. But for the people who are full of ego and pride, you don't want to wait for that until the awakening happens. So let your awakening, if it takes a scary day, a scary 2 days, because sometimes when you ask for ego to be cleared, something really embarrassing might happen. But it saved you from yourself, and it saved you from a trajectory and path. Ego is a sleep that entities can put on you, but it's your soul to accept it. I'll teach more about ego in the future, because this helps a lot of people. No one's talking about ego. No one knows what ego is. No one even can identify ego now. I hope this video has helped you guys, because the more people without ego and the more people who are humble are going to generate more humble people. It really hurts when someone doesn't know how they feel after someone with ego puts them down, because that person ends up becoming egotistical like the person, because they're practicing mirror behaviors. They're practicing what the entities of the ego behind them are presenting towards them, and they don't know it. Awareness is key. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Ciao!